Awesome. All right. So welcome here, Jordy. Just want to, can you introduce yourself and just say kind of where you live, talk about
Yeah,
your family
betcha.
and
Yeah, my name's Jordy Schmerler. I am currently in Vernon, BC. That's where I am right now, this moment. I have my lovely wife who is out playing sports right now, I think. And then three kids are sleeping. Sam's 8, Haley is 6, Emma's 3. And yeah, keeps us busy.
yeah, no kidding. And then you just acquired a crane business. So that's why we're really talking. So do you want to just give us the name of your crane business, how many cranes you got, how many employees, what kind of industries you work in?
Yeah, so we're 13676 BC Ltd, otherwise known as Vertex Crane Service.
Yeah.
Vernon, BC. Yeah, the reason why I'll get to that is why we're still, it just made it easier. So, whoever, if anyone ends up follow, or there will people that end up following this, so you'll realize I tend to lose my train of thought real quick and stuff. I'm on some medication for that, but okay, so Vertex Crane, yeah, the acquisition was, I think it was like October 1st last year. So we're basically 6 months in. I'd never really run a formal business before. I've kind of had some entrepreneur tendencies for a while. And then when the opportunity presented itself, sort of took it. We have two 40-ton swing cabs. We got a Manitex 4128 SHL, which is a kind of a weird one if anybody knows anything about Manitex.
Yeah.
BC, there's 40-ton and under tickets, which is what I have. The previous owner of our company had. So there's actually a D rating that we can do of a 5128 SHL down to a 40, which is pretty awesome. It's a sweet lifter. It has an awesome over the rear chart. Yeah, I was lifting, like, even today, I was like 30, no, yeah, 3,100 pounds at like just under 100 feet. So over the rear.
Sweet.
So it was pretty
Yeah.
cool. And then, yeah, and then we have it's a 2013 and 2012 4124 SHL. So that's kind of our other one. We've also got, to kind of complement, we've got a Ford F550 and a 40-foot triaxle gooseneck 30K pounder, and then C-cans and other things, and then another, like my 1 ton and a 20-foot deck over too, which we kind of loan out the trailer a bit and, work with customers. Hey, this is that. And we're just finding obviously trucking issues left, right, and center. So, hey, our trucking's not going to be cheap, but it's dedicated. And so we can kind of complement customers with that. Industries, oh boy. I mean, you name it. I mean, I got we do everything from, building materials. Historically, previous owner did lots of trusses.
Okay. Yeah.
So yeah, lots of trusses, and up here in the Okanagan we fly singles. So the crane operators get pretty good at flying trusses. Well,
Yeah. No kidding.
I could put 100 with a good crew. I could put 100 trusses up in a day. So yeah, and yeah, I mean, the rooftop air units, lots of hot tubs, sheds, sea cans. I mean, you name it. Lots of the smaller stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
every once in a while, because it's Vernon, every once in a while, a bigger project to come along. So last year and early into this year, $150 million rec center. So we call it the 128. So the 128 was on site for like 5 months almost straight. All Perry forms. So lots of
Yeah.
form work.
Yeah.
And then right now we got a big, huge steel job. So lots of some structural steel, trees, the odd truck rack. I mean, mini excavators, skid steers, lifting them into holes because we're all hills here in Vernon. Trying to think what some other crazy stuff. You name it. Basically, you name it. It's a
Yeah.
hey,
Yeah.
hey,
Hey,
how can we help you? How can we help you? Right? It's a yeah.
yeah, that's a good way to put it. So I just want to introduce myself for obviously the people that are watching this that don't know me. I'm Simon and I'm with Cyber Crane Training. And what we do is basically consulting newer owners in the crane business how to set up the foundation of their crane business to get them with a good foundation and a good start. In the crane business and also the fundamentals. We help them with the blind spots that they may not have known because, like we were talking earlier this week, Jordy, a lot of the guys that own crane companies are ex crane operators, right? That decided, I'm done making everyone money. I want to make my own money and work for myself. So
That's false. That's a fallacy, by the way. At least in my experience, to make the money part.
yeah, it can go both ways sometimes,
It's
but
not that.
yeah.
Yeah.
so yeah, we're just trying to help them get more efficient. So we're setting up their safety programs, we're setting up systems, everything in their head. We want to get out of their head and onto like an app or on paper that we can now train our employees better instead of us doing it all ourselves and then just making guys more efficient. And then we work on marketing and yeah, just with the labor crisis, solving that for guys. So we just want to help out because there's a lot of good young guys in our generation that are working hard, but they're getting crushed by the higher cost of houses and everything's going up. So there's a lot of pressure on those guys. So we just want to get them in a good place and help them out. So, well, I do have a website. It's cybercranetraining.store, and on there is basically everything you need to start a crane company, all the systems and standard operating procedures and training on the cranes. So yeah, let's talk about the business that you just acquired. Do you want to just give us a brief summary of, how you got the opportunity, Jordy?
Yeah, sure. So basically, how it worked. I mean, Simon might get into it, but we actually it's a small world. So Simon and I grew up together, and his dad actually gave me my first opportunity at running a picker truck. So
Yeah,
it was short, but it was sweet, and that's a whole nother story.
yeah,
But so how I came to kind of sort of acquire this company is, so I had mentioned to Simon before we started here, work for a wage for, the better part of probably 12 years or so, maybe even 13 in the industry. It did get to the point where I wasn't enjoying the current situation that I was in. And it wasn't necessarily about enjoying, because we all have good days and bad days and whatever. And you can obviously choose to enjoy the day as opposed to, just drag your feet and feel sorry for yourself. But, being in Vernon, kind of a smaller town, like Vernon surrounding area, 60, 70,000, Vernon proper, 35, 40,000. So not massive, involved in a family run kind of company and didn't see much of a future. So, shopped around for a couple of jobs, was interested in moving back to the Lower Mainland, had a job offer down there because that's where I grew up in the Greater Vancouver, Abbotsford. And, but our family we had decided we'd left several years prior, 5 or 7 years prior, and we just decided it wasn't worth it for us to particularly for the family to relocate for a job. So basically it was like we got to move to the city, or I got to buy my own truck crane, or I got to leave the industry. So those were kind of my options, and move back to the city wasn't an option. To stay in Vernon, okay, to buy my own crane truck wasn't an option, because at that time there was the guys I was working for who were very super tight ship, like really great guys to work for, and they did excellent crane work. And then there were a bunch of just kind of the one guy, a couple cranes, so the market was flooded in Vernon. So I chose to leave the industry for a couple of years. Fast forward, the company I had worked for actually shut down over those 2 years. I got a phone call from another crane operator in town, a fellow who owned a couple cranes, kind of wanting or needing an operator. I was kind of flexible at the time. I was sort of working for myself, doing a little bit of this, doing a little bit of that. And I took the bait and jumped back in. And it was really cool because I was able to sort of get a refresh as to, back into the industry and realize how much I did actually love it. And I mean, I'd grown up a little bit over, time is a funny thing. We all grow maybe older and maybe a little wiser.
yeah,
But the fellow who called me, he wasn't young. He wasn't a young man. He'd been doing it for a long time. He'd been involved in town, in the crane, his couple cranes in town for a long time. So naturally, I was like, well, hey man, like, what's your plan? Because there's, the company I previously worked for, and they had 6 trucks. Like, they weren't a small company. The fellow who I was potentially going to work for, he had 3 at the time, and he's like, yeah, no, I'm so done. I'm so tired of this. Like, just kind of and I'm like, well, let's chat. And so we did. And we had some colorful chats over the months. I was working for him while we were sort of negotiating, which was
okay, yeah,
interesting.
yeah, no kidding.
But you know what? It was great. And we were like, that fella and I were like an old married couple, and we would butt heads and we would do this. And at the end of the day, we would just, and he's about 3 times my size. And so it was pretty funny.
Yeah,
And so we came up with a number, and over the course of door to door, it was probably the better part of probably, like, it was certainly 6 months, maybe longer, maybe 9 even, from when we started talking to, yeah, it probably was, it was probably like a February to an October sort of, that when we said, hey, let's do this, letter of intent to the actual, transfer over. And now I'm stuck. I couldn't leave even if I wanted to. So,
That's a good way to put it. It's a good motivator too. So the first thing I want to talk about is kind of that style. It's like, hey, what style of crane business are we going to build? So you have the two cranes, and you kind of own them with guys, and then there's kind of a newer way that guys are getting into the crane industry, and it's through like just being a crane broker. So what they are is basically a phone and an email, and they do a lot of marketing online, and they get
yeah,
customers and
interesting. I
clients.
actually, I actually didn't even know that. So that's
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah. So basically, you won't, a lot of operators or ex-operators don't do this. It's mostly dispatch and sales. They've never run a crane or they don't have their license, but they know the crane industry. So what they'll do is basically have this online company. And then the pros is like you're not restricted to a city or a border, right? You can do out of province work. You can cover the whole state or even country if you wanted to, but most people stick within, a few hours kind of area, right? Because they have to get to know a few crane companies and that does all their work. So they'll just take percentages of each job, right? Whether that's 10 to 15, 20%,
Boy,
depending on the
that's
deal.
steep. That's a lot.
Yeah, 20, the highest I've kind of heard is 17.
That's at least in my world, that's a lot.
Yeah, yeah, that's, cutting your profit right there. So, but for the most part, it's usually from 10 to 15. It's usually, I find around 10, is kind of the most common one. So what they'll do is they need a lot of jobs coming in. And so they focus big on marketing and advertising, right? And they want to take there's clients out there that know nothing about cranes. They know that they just want someone to take care of the job. So the cons to that is a lot of times they're not really like physically on the site, right? So they're not going and measuring these jobs. So what happens is whoever they send to that job, whatever crane company, they have to deal with the issues that arise, and the surprises, right? So like I did one where the guys told me the measurements of the building, the weight, I went and did it, and I went to go pick it up, and my shredder bar was too small because there's actually overhangs that they didn't account for, right? Because they didn't measure for those, right? So I ended up, I got it done, but it wasn't pretty.
Sounds like the crane version of an engineer. Did I say that
Yeah,
wrong?
yeah, basically. But hey, there is money in it, and
Hey,
some
engineers are
are.
engineers are amazing.
And I just want to say, like, that is one style. And some people don't want to be physically on the crane or even own cranes, right? They just want to be in the industry and kind of make money in more of like an office style. So another style is the owner operator. So it's very similar to the crane broker where they have kind of the office, they have the dispatch, the sales, but all their fleet is owner operators, which takes the risk away from them. So the owner operators of those cranes now have to take on the risk of breakdowns and fuel and maintenance and all that. But the benefit is those operators are promoting themselves and they have to promote you as well, right? So all of their work goes through your company. So you're getting a percentage of that and then you're also promoting them. So you have this kind of well-oiled machine that kind of self promotes itself. And I find those guys are actually growing quite a bit lately. The other way is kind of like what we do, where we own the cranes and we pay employees to run them, which is you get obviously a lot higher percentage of the profits. But then again, you have the risk as well, and you're covering the maintenance and
Yeah,
you know
the time for
and the
sure.
time, yeah,
Yeah,
exactly right.
yeah,
The time's the big
yeah.
one where it's all on you at the end of the day. And if someone calls in sick, you gotta show up and do twice as much work. So, and then the other style is kind of the investor, right? So, a lot of crane companies have these investors that know nothing about cranes, but they're just the money behind it. And yeah, that's getting quite popular. So what is your style, and is that something that's you might think you might change over time? or are you going to stick to kind of the owner of the crane and owning the cranes kind
Yeah.
of thing?
So I mean, I think it's sort of. I mean, I think the style that you end up landing in sort of, one might work better for somebody depending on sort of who they are. Even like
Yeah,
as a
exactly.
person, right? I
Yeah,
mean, so a guy who could be an amazing crane operator, but is a total, into his shell, leave me alone kind of guy. He might want to be an owner operator for an F&G on the coast. I think was a big one, right? Where
yeah,
I'm not sure, is that, where they, it's
yeah, yeah.
basically a dispatch, where they put their
Basically, yeah,
sticker on the truck and they put I mean, I think that's probably a little more popular too into the kind of the metro, like the bigger city centers. At first earshot, I go, no way, man. Like I have totally, I'm totally an owner operator type guy.
yeah,
Hire wisely, spend wisely, get out in the community, go out and do the Christmas parades and sponsor the school fairs and stuff. But that's also because we're, again, in Vernon here, we're a bit of a smaller community, right? And so, I mean, I think a lot of people, when I show up to look at a job and they go, "Hey, were you the guy I talked to on the phone?" And they kind of were like, they're like, "What?" And I go, "Yeah, Dad, no, I'm the guy. I answered the phone. I own the company." And they go, "Awesome." Like you're actually, so here that model works. I don't know of any particularly stiff boom, maybe on the knuckle boom, on the P&D, pickup delivery transportation side. Maybe there's certainly probably a bit more of that in the Kelowna, Vernon, but on the stiff boom, like the stiff boom side, most of the kind of the players in the Okanagan, we know of each other, at least, or maybe we even know each other, and pretty much all owner operator type situation. There's a few family crews, but and as for my situation, there is a bit of a hybrid because when I took over the company, it's like, well, I actually I had I have a couple other, I call them investors or whatever you want. I mean, they're partners on paper. They're basically fellas who sort of heard about what I was doing, and because of Vernon, whom I actually both knew personally, and obviously had a few bucks kicking around that I didn't have, and so I was able to contribute a significant percentage, and then we basically almost have a three-way split in terms of the actual percentage of ownership of the limited company. So it's kind of cool because, at least for me, I like to think of myself as not a greedy guy, in the sense of I'm not probably, I'm not looking to go lie on the beach in Cabo San Lucas when I'm 50. I
yeah,
just don't think I would survive doing that. I don't think there's actually, personally, I don't think there's a lot of value in that. I don't think that's how we were designed. But anyway, that's a whole other topic. So uh, yeah, no, I totally see myself being out there, meeting people, networking, shaking hands, smiling, having conversations with guys, joking around on site. It makes the day for me. It really
yeah,
does. I mean, on the flip side, the owner operator model is you have to deal with all the other stuff too, right? Not every day is just amazing. There are some days that are absolutely, words. Yeah, I shouldn't probably say on
covered
in
in,
public.
yeah,
Oh man.
hydraulic
So
fluid
I mean, and Simon, right? And
and fuel
so
bed.
that's the model, though. That's the model. I think for me, I think that's how I could see myself. I can't see myself sitting in an office and telling guys that are owning their own trucks where to go. I just can't. For
Yeah,
me, I can't see it. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, it definitely is based on personality, right? And like past experiences, right? Where that's more like kind of office guys drift to the crane brokers and the owner operator style businesses, right? Where they're, hands on the computer and that's the way they're hardwired kind of thing. Where we're more kind of physical. We want to jump on the crane and kind of do the job, and that's where we enjoy and we thrive, right? So one of the big blind spots I find in guys starting businesses is not thinking about the selling the business basically. So that's usually the last thing they think of because they just bought it and they're gung ho and they got their goals and what they want, right? And they're passionate about that. But I recommend finding out like how to sell a business, and what's involved in that. Just because like you just never know what happens in life. Like there's like kids get sick, there's divorces, there's, health issues, and you just never know what, happens down the line, or it could be a good thing where it's like you have a great opportunity and you need to sell the business, to get the money for this new opportunity, right? So kind of like real estate, but a lot of people kind of pass over that, which I think the healthiest business that you can build is one that's actually a sellable business. So we'll just kind of work through kind of what it takes to have a sellable business. And so the first thing is like systems. And that's a thing that, like my dad's old school, right? He's a high school dropout. He taught me how to work hard, do good work, be a good crane operator, kind of put your head down, do your customers well and get work, right? But,
And
he just didn't.
these guys are good crane operators, by the way. They're unreal.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
No, no,
Uh,
I talk about you, Simon.
no, I'm talking about my dad. He's, he's a legend. So
He
he's
is
taught
a
me kind
legend.
of
That guy.
everything.
Light as a feather, Jordy. Light as a feather. I'll never forget.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. What he's taught me over the years, it's and taught a lot of people in the crane business through the training and through kind of our businesses. A lot of people remember him. But still a hardworking guy. It's sometimes hard to keep up with him, right? So, but yeah, systems is something that basically everything in the owner's head has to come out on paper. Oh, whether it's your maintenance. So some guys, like my dad, back in the day, it's just kind of like he would remember, oh, when's the last time I greased that truck? And some guys are very good at remembering and other guys aren't. And that's where, trucks, start to get problems when you forget to, grease a certain part, right? So maintenance, you got even marketing, like how are we getting new customers and how are we keeping track of our customer base, right? Are we keeping in touch with our customer base? We can all just kind of phone the customers every once in a while, and that's good practice. But are we actually checking in, and do we have a system to say, hey, we've already phoned him and checked in on that? Because for a business like ours, we can get like 50 to 100,000 a year on just phoning clients that haven't used us in a couple months and checking them in. And, because sometimes they have to use other companies, bigger cranes, and they can kind of forget about the smaller companies, right? But yeah, like safety protocols, it's hard to transfer a company now without all your safety procedures, right? Because it just takes one incident for, WorkSafe to come into your business and say, hey, where's your safety protocols? And if you don't have any, they just shut you down until you do, right? So then it's a massive panic. So getting all these things prepared for the sale will help you have a great business, right? Another thing is like a control center, like a dispatching, right? So how to track the hours on an app, how to schedule, your maintenance, how to schedule the jobs, everything kind of leading back to this one app, right? That controls your entire business and keeps it organized, right?
You're gonna have to win me over on that one, Simon. It's funny because I'm probably the new school version of your dad, and I'm going. I don't want an app controlling my business. That sounds freaky.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's the pros are like I would say the first 10% of it is, and the growing pains are frustrating, but once you get past that 10%, the rest 90% is awesome, right? Where it's just, you have everything at the click of a button instead of, constantly writing it out and doing the same thing over and over and over. You can just send someone, what you've already done. So another system that we have is like for every single one of our cranes, we have a training PDF with pictures and troubleshooting on it. So I can send it to one of our new guys, say he's moving up from the 40 ton to the 80 ton. And I tested it out on one of our guys. I said, hey, set up this crane without me ever teaching you. And they went through every step that I told them to in that PDF and used the pictures as references and he set it up properly. So what we used to do, and I'm sure we did it to you back in the day, Jordy, is when we had to send you out to a new industry and say it's trusses and you've never done trusses, but we've been training you for the last 2-3 months and now you're on your own and you can control those levers and operate the crane, but you've never done that industry, is we have training on that individual industry,
Nice.
with
That's
obviously
huge.
the beginner step by step, but also with our wisdom over the years. So we'll throw in something, a tip of just check your radius on your last truss. That might seem common sense to us because we've been doing it for a while, but somebody taught us that, and we just have known it for so long that it seems like common sense to us. So we might not teach that to somebody. So it's like, hey, check the radius of your last truss. Well, if it's 4 feet away, then count 4 feet over on your radius, and you'll be bang on the next one, right? So just kind of
Yeah.
pattern it. So, and it just, what
Yeah.
it does,
Totally.
it gets guys, your operators more confident going into the job. They know what they're doing, and then they can do that. Maybe, read it the first 5 times they do that industry, and then they'll kind of go back and be like, you know what, now I know what that situation is, what he's trying to tell me, because I just ran
Totally.
into that today, right? But what we used to do is we used to call guys the night before, and we used to call you and say, hey, you're doing trusses. This is what you got to do. And we just kind of overload you with information. And then we hang up the phone. Then we wake up at 3 in the morning, realize, oh, I forgot to tell them the most important part. So then we phone you at 6 in the morning saying, hey, you got to do this. You got to remember this. But what happens is, the new operators, their mind is just mush, right? There's so much going on. They're stressed out, and they can't retain all those things that you told them. But on these steps,
Totally.
they can actually go back and read over them, to remember them, right? It's not just, oh, we told you that 10 times, before, why aren't you doing that kind of thing, right? They can actually kind of keep themselves accountable. Awesome. So yeah, we'll go back to selling the business and getting that kind of ready. You obviously need good operators too that will transfer to the new company. Having obviously good operators to run your cranes, is the best way forward for yourself, right? To make money, and the operators and the employees, make or break your business. Going forward now, I know a lot of people are complaining about the labor crisis, and then construction. I think the numbers, like, for every 7 kind of baby boomers that are leaving and retiring, there's only one, younger guy replacing them, right? So
Yeah,
it's
it's
getting,
pretty wild out there. Yeah, and I mean,
yeah.
I'm sure you have too. Even in the last, I mean, I've noticed I've noticed that
Mhm.
either there's a lack of guys, numbers, bodies on a particular site, or there's a lack of, quality labor
Yeah,
on
oh,
site in terms of, man,
yeah,
this could be a lot more efficient if people not
yeah,
only knowing what you're doing is one thing, but at least trying is
yeah, yeah,
it's like, can you please
yeah.
just try?
Oh, I know,
But
right?
anyway,
Yeah,
yeah.
because it's getting crazy. But there are people that are getting away with it, right? There are people that are companies that are hiring, and then I find there are companies that are struggling a lot more, right? So there are ways around kind of the labor crisis. Sometimes I find a lot of times it's a reflection of the owner,
Yeah,
and
I would
the
agree.
culture in that business. Um, because, like I said, there are people getting hired, especially down here, like every couple days or every day there's a new crane operator getting hired. We're in the crane school business, so we're pumping new guys into the market, nonstop too, right? Um, so yeah, there's ways around that. So that's a part of the program, is getting the culture of the company, and solving the labor, shortage, so that people actually come to us and we're desirable to work for, right? That
Totally.
because the crane business is pretty small, and our operators talk to other operators, and what did they say? What's our reputation? What's the first couple sentences that come out of their mouth, right? Is it, oh, these guys are cheap, or these guys are hard to work for, they're perfectionists, and so all of these comments, whether good or bad, uh, get spread around, right? So then when other operators come in the market and decide, hey, I want to switch, companies or jobs, they're not even bothering to come to us, because they already know, oh, they're cheap, so I'll go try my luck somewhere else, right?
Sure.
So, but
Sure.
that being said, there is money to be made, right? In the trades, with the labor shortage, the people that are in the crane business are going to make quite a bit of money, because it's just kind of getting narrower and narrower, and the work is getting kind of more, right? So there is pros to that as well. So I just want to run over quickly, who buys a crane business. For the most part, it's investors is actually the ones that buy crane businesses. So they want to invest their money, buy the business, and then take the profits out of it. It's obviously better than just sitting in a bank and collecting interest for the money. But that being said, it's not the greatest for the seller. So the seller, say if you're burnt out or if you're going through that divorce or the kids are sick and you need to sell that business quickly, that's not really an option to sell to an investor just because they want you to run it full time. And that's not a very desirable, sell just because it's like, hey, if I'm running the crane business still, I might as well just keep all the profits, right? So the investors only work, in certain situations, like for yourself, you said, uh, you got two guys that invested with you, right? So, but you're on the crane, so you're doing kind of, the managing side of it all, and then they're more like silent,
Yeah,
basically,
and
partner.
I mean at a 30 whatever, we'll call it a third or a little bit better than a third owner, which is a
Yeah,
good feeling, right?
yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah,
absolutely, yeah. So another potential buyer, and this is usually the best kind of buyer, is another crane company kind of buys you. Maybe they're looking to get into the market that you're in and branching out, or they just know, hey, we want to scoop up all your customers, and we know you got good cranes, so we want to add that as a part of our fleet. And it might be like a knuckle boom company buys a stiff boom company, and they get to diversify, right? So that's usually the best kind of bang for your buck as far as selling. But then there's, the con to that is a lot of your competitors will kind of, they'll see kind of the blood in the water, right? And then they'll just kind of bleed you out and try to wait you out and just take the customers for free, right? So there is that side to it.
yeah, oh yeah, it's like you say, it's a small world.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh yeah,
Business can be pretty cruel sometimes. So, but yeah, if you're prepared early, and that's why I want to prepare guys at the start so that they're prepared for this. Yeah, and then in your situation, another potential buyer of a crane business is an ex crane operator that wants to get into the market, wants to kind of get into more of running a business and that side and potentially growing it and getting more profits than just kind of the daily working for somebody else, right? So those are kind of the three main ones that I find. And there's obviously pros and cons to those. Another reason why I want to prepare a new business owner for sale is a lot of guys overvalue their business, right? Like we watch Shark Tank and Dragon's Den, and the first thing that they say out of their mouths is, "Oh, you've overvalued your business, and
yeah.
your
Uh, I
valuation
mean, it's
is
funny
way
because
off."
I just went through that, and a little bit, and I mean, you do lean on your accountants a little bit just to basically
Yeah,
say, hey, look, I mean, and I'm all for if your business is worth, and it's the same with any business. It's like if your business is worth X, you think your business is fantastic,
yeah,
show me, right?
yeah,
And let's talk about it for sure. I mean,
yeah,
because it's yeah, I mean. No, at least most crane operators, at least in that situation, and to your point, um, I certainly don't have a ton of cash kicking around, right? So you want to make sure you're getting really good value for your money. Yeah.
yeah. Oh, absolutely. That being said, right? Like the bank doesn't really care. All they want is the physical side of it, right? So they don't really value goodwill as it's worthless to them, right? So they
Yeah.
will
No,
only give
it's
you the money
collateral.
for the cranes, right? So and they're kind of like the sharks in the industry where it's they're not going to give you money or take any risk with you, right? So it's hard for guys ex crane operators to get into the market unless they've made money maybe in real estate or they sell their house kind of thing
Right.
to get into it. There's obviously other ways of investing and different things like that and owner operators just buying one truck kind of thing, and then branching into, as you do well over the years, getting another truck as well. Yeah, because a lot of guys, basically what that happens is they kind of say, hey, I'm going to buy this crane business and I'm 30 something. I'm going to work for 30 years, build it up, and then I'm going to sell it for millions. And that's basically it. It doesn't happen, right? Because what happens is the assets are so high in the crane business. So like your crane's physical side is worth the most, that the goodwill side, cancels it out. Goodwill isn't actually worth much, because if you multiply, one of the common ways to value a business is, your profit or your cash flow. You take the average of the last 3 years of that company and then multiply it by 3 or 4. That's kind of usually average what a
Yeah,
company goes
profits. Yeah,
for.
yeah.
Yeah. But
Yeah, in
what
a
happens?
in like a share sale or type scenario or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And
Yeah. The only
sometimes the
problem is
cranes are actually worth
if
more
your
than that.
company's and if your crane company's, making all this money, I mean,
Yeah,
anybody, I'm not an accountant, but it's like, hey, look, like there's tax implications too, where you want to be able to, if you're showing this massive profit, well, you're going to be paying massive taxes. So,
yeah,
it's that fine, just with any, like the same with any business. So, yeah.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So, um, yeah, so it matters, like, because you don't want to get to 65 and realize, learn uh, you know, uh, that your business isn't what you thought it was worth, right? And you're gonna have to work another 10 more years to actually really retire, right? So, yeah, so that's kind of what we're doing. And as this course, like, we'll start the course next week, and we're gonna start kind of implementing the systems and getting the business organized, so that if you want to, you can scale up and expand your business. If you want to keep it, we'll get it more profitable and more efficient, and just more organized as well, um,
I'm not
where
going to
you have
argue with that.
more time, right? So it yeah, time is money. And yeah, in the crane business, it can really suck. A lot of these owners are working 60 hours a week, right? They're working a day job as a crane operator, and then they're doing all the maintenance and the site visits and accounting and billing after, right? So that's another kind of reason why a lot of guys decline away from, buying a crane business where the owner's doing all that, right? They kind of want a dispatch to be involved and running the business, so that they can now come in and have that help, right? They don't want to spend millions of dollars to work 60 hours a week, right? So,
Sure.
um,
I mean, not because I've never worked 60 hours a week before ever, right? Yeah.
yeah,
I
I
figure
know.
I'm about seven. I figure I'm about 72 right now on average.
Yeah,
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 about
but
that. 70. I mean, I call it 6 12-hour days. Give or take maybe a few hours.
yeah, yeah. No, I kind of, I've been on salary for so long that I just kind of don't track my hours. I just
Yeah,
kind of
no,
like,
and I don't
I
either. Yeah,
know,
no.
I don't even know what 8 hours feels like working an 8 hour
Yeah,
day, right? So,
yeah,
but you can get your company more efficient, that you are, yeah, not repeating yourself, doing the same phone calls or training, even training your customers to, to text you with all the information that you need, right? That's a huge
totally.
thing, where it's like,
Yeah,
that
and that's
saves you so much
actually
time.
I've started that and it's
Yeah.
been amazing
Oh,
and it's even catching on just
yeah.
because I'm going, hey, look, yeah, no, I totally get it. I'll put what I, my little system in my whatever you call it a system is
Yeah.
hey, yeah, call me, awesome. Can you shoot me a text with what we just talked about? And then I'll put it in my calendar and then I'll shoot you back a text when I put it in my calendar. That way you know it's booked. I've received it and we've both got it in writing.
Yeah. Yeah. And just even making
Yeah.
a template and just saying, pickup time, address, pickup address, job site address, what we're picking up, and, job numbers and all that. If we have a template, we just send that over an email. They have to fill that
Nice.
all out, and it's boom, done, right? That's why I'm very pro app, because it's just like click that button to send that template, and then
Well,
they have to
we'll
fill it
see
out,
if you
right?
win me over.
yeah. So it, I won my dad over, and
I
I have a feeling that
I think if you won him
you'll
over,
be
you could
there.
probably we'll
Yeah,
see. We'll
no,
see.
it's I yeah, no, it's all good. But it was awesome talking to you, and yeah, we'll conclude tonight with that, and yeah, yeah, that's all good.